Then on Sports Central, we go over March Madness game preview and prediction on the round of 64 matchup between the Arkansas Razorbacks and the Vermont Catamounts. Both teams have had good seasons to this point. You got Arkansas is 25-8 heading into this matchup. Definitely one of the best teams in the SEC. And they got seeded as a 4 seed for the NCAA tournament. They're facing off against the 13 seed, being Vermont. Definitely the best team in the America East this season. 28-5 overall is their record heading into this matchup. Should make for a good one. We'll be going over a full game preview and prediction on this matchup here today, starting out with your team trends. Arkansas, once again, 25-8 overall, so it's been a good season for this team. Definitely one of your top teams in the SEC this season. They were 13-5 in conference play, and then 4-1 against teams that were ranked in the top 25. So, I mean, 4-1, they haven't played too many teams ranked in the top 25 over the course of the season, but when they have had success, which is a good sign. And for Vermont, 28-5 overall, their schedule isn't very strong, obviously being in the America East. I mean, you don't really have any contenders in that conference. I mean, UMBC was the second place team in the conference, but they were, I would say, not even close to being as good as Vermont is right now. Also for the Catamounts, 17-1 in conference play, and they were 0-1 when they played or in games against the top 25. So Vermont really doesn't have too much experience playing high caliber opponents, which is a bit of a concern going into this matchup. But of course, I mean, you never know. I mean, when it gets to March, you can see any team beat a top team like Arkansas, who is a 4 seed in this tournament. So anything can happen. But moving on, this game will be on Thursday, March 17th, Buffalo, New York. And your tip-off is 9:20 p.m. Eastern. So kind of an interesting situation. I mean, for Arkansas having to go way up north, Vermont, this is kind of, I mean, they kind of have an advantage here because they're not terribly far from the location of this game as it is in the Northeast. Spread's going Arkansas here about 5, so it's not terribly wide on the spread. Over-under is 139.5. And your BPI is going Arkansas 59.8% here. So Razorbacks are favored, but not by a lot, considering it's a 4 versus 13 game. And this is also the first matchup between the history of these two programs. Here's your stat comparison. Arkansas 76.9 points a game, and they allow 68.5 in comparison to Vermont. Vermont gets 74.9 points a game, and then they allow 60.3. So obviously Vermont, their stats you could say are better, especially defensively. But once again, they haven't played too many high caliber opponents this season. Arkansas's played a lot of good basketball teams. So I mean, Arkansas, with that said, I mean, their stats are pretty good. And if you look at the BPIs here, Arkansas is ranked 20th and Vermont is 38. And some notable matchups for sure. You got Arkansas, who's played, once again, multiple top-tier teams. And if you look in the tournament, you can see Kentucky and Auburn are both 2 seeds. And Arkansas has beaten both of them. They beat Kentucky by 2 and Auburn by 4 earlier in the season. They were 1-1 against Tennessee, and they beat LSU 3 times, which is definitely a positive. I mean, the Tigers being a decent basketball team, and they're a 6 seed in this tournament, and Arkansas beat them 3 times over the course of the season. They did lose to Alabama, who is a 6 seed in this tournament, by 1, but otherwise they've played pretty well against good teams this season. They have taken 8 losses over the course of the year, but against good teams, this team has actually done pretty well. And as for Vermont, they've lost to Providence, who is a 4 seed in this tournament, by 10. They did beat Yale and Colgate. Both teams are 14 seeds in this tournament. Otherwise, they really haven't played many good teams. They lost to Maryland by 11, beat UMBC 3 times. But otherwise, Vermont just hasn't really gotten that experience. Or, I mean, you could probably say their best win on their schedule. I mean, if you're looking at skill-wise, I mean, Yale and Colgate are the 2 best teams that they've played on their schedule, or at least one against. And both of them are 14 seeds, which obviously is not very good. So, I mean, it's something to consider there for sure. Vermont really hasn't beaten any high-caliber opponents, despite them having 28 wins on their schedule. Some key points for this one: Arkansas, J.D. Note, definitely a significant player for this team. He's averaged over 18 points a game on the year. And for Vermont, coming into this game, they already haven't played a team anywhere near as talented as this Razorback basketball team is. And when you're going up against J.D. Note, who's an outstanding player, it's going to be tough for Vermont. And, I mean, once again, it is college basketball and it's March, so you never know what can happen. Any team can win, that's for sure. But, I mean, Arkansas, Vermont's going to have a challenge facing off against this Arkansas basketball team. And if you look at the Razorbacks, they've generally played really well against good teams down the stretch. I mean, they've beaten some high-caliber opponents multiple teams that are seeded really highly in this tournament, Arkansas is beaten. So, Razorbacks have done well there, and they've got the experience too. That is huge in March Madness. When you've got an experienced team, that's going to be a key factor, because when it comes down to it, you got good leadership and an experienced roster. It's going to be huge, and I think Arkansas, this is a team that can make a deep run with the talent that they do have. And looking at Vermont, Ryan Davis, Isaiah Powell, definitely two key players for this team. And if you look at this team, they rolled through conference play, and they were, once again, 28-5 overall is their record. So, but then again, their strength of schedule is incredibly poor. They really haven't played any. They've played a couple of good teams for sure, but they just haven't really beaten anybody that's incredibly good. And I think, though, Vermont here, this is a team that's actually definitely a favorite for a potential upset. We have seen definitely this game to be a potential upset bid, and I could definitely see it happening. Vermont's very talented too, but I just don't know if this is my favorite for an upset. I definitely think Arkansas is the favorite here, and once again, by paper, this Arkansas team is clearly more talented. But when it comes down to it, once again, it's college basketball, and when it's March Madness, any team can win. But that said, let's get to the prediction here for this game. I'm going to go with Arkansas on this one. 71-65 is my predicted final score. I think Arkansas, this is going to be a close game throughout. It's not going to get out of hand by any means. I think Arkansas is going to win this game, potentially lead it for the majority of the game, but Vermont's going to hang in there. They're going to keep this game close for sure. I'm going to go 60% towards the Razorbacks. You're over under 139.5. I'm going to take the under for this game and Arkansas to cover. The over-under is tough to predict for this one. I could definitely see it going either way. If Vermont wins, it's more than likely going to go under, but you never know. So if you're picking Vermont as an upset, I would probably take the under. And I would take Arkansas to cover the spread as well. It's kind of bold saying that. It's a 5-point spread, but I'm going to go with Arkansas to cover and win the game 71-65. And Catamounts definitely could pull an upset here. It's once again, it's tough to predict games when you come to March Madness, but I'm going to go with Arkansas 71-65 in this matchup. Let me know your thoughts and comments below on this game, and I appreciate you guys watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.